thanks for joining us on the Little Big Conversation, or the Little Big Chat. We've been running these little conversations that we've been having. So our YouTube channel is actually called A Big Chat, because we are the Big Scuba podcast. So and usually with our interviews, we're normally sort of like, they can be like an hour, nearly 2 hours with some people. And, you know, involves lots of preparation and research and things like that. But sometimes it's good just to do more impromptu, quick chats, find out who somebody is, and then just share it and what have you. So the whole being of a Little Big Chat is for you to come on and let's find out who you are and what you do, and, you know, hear about your story, really. So online, we've got
all relaxed.
Yeah,
Lovely. Fantastic.
Gemma, myself, and Scuba Honey here as well, my daughter. So
Hello.
we're all here, really. So Helena, you know, tell us who you are. You know, you're a free diver, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm a freediver, a speaker, and a breath trainer. I've been freediving for 7 years. I hope correctly, assume that most of your listeners actually know what freediving is. If they don't, it is breath hold diving. So I don't wear a regulator, I don't have a tank, I'm not even using a snorkel when I go diving. I will do when I snorkel. When I actually do my dive, I'm not using a snorkel. I'm just purely relying on the air in my lungs to take me as deep as possible and back up. You can also do free diving in a swimming pool for distance, but I'm very much an ocean girl. I prefer to be in the big blue rather than in a swimming pool, if I can possibly be.
So how deep do you go?
Currently 76 meters. I'm desperate to get back to it, missing the ocean hugely.
76 meters?
Yes. And I've done that in bifins, so the very long flexible fins that we wear, and also with my monofin as well. I've done 76.
So you don't go down with a weight?
We do, depending on where you're diving. So if you're diving somewhere nice and warm, I can get away with a wetsuit that's only 1.5 mil thick, which means I only need to wear roughly 1.5 kilos to make myself neutrally buoyant. Around 14, 15 meters is where I'm comfortable being neutrally buoyant before I go into my free fall. And so I wear that on a neck weight. And I wear it the entire dive. I go down with it and I come back up with it. You never drop weights during competition dives. You can do something like no limits or variable weight, which you go down for both of them on a trolley, and variable you then fin back up, or you pull the line back up or whatever, and the trolley's weighted so you go down really, really fast, but you wear no weights so you can come up nice and quickly. And with no limits, again, the trolley is obviously weighted, and you come up, you fill a balloon and take a ride up to the surface, but they're considered to be potentially quite dangerous activity, so we don't do them in competition anymore. People can still do them and get records for them, but it's not a competition. Neither of them.
Is there injuries involved with that then? You know, because as a diver, you know, we don't hold our breath because we're breathing in compressed air, but obviously you're not, because you take air in from the atmosphere.
The injuries that freedivers can happen to them is if they go too deep too quickly and their body is not prepared and hasn't adapted to the pressures you face, or they do a move that's an overstretch at depth. Say you're down at 76 meters and you do a great big stretch to collect your tag from the bottom plate to come back up and show the judges you've been to the bottom, and you stretch badly or you turn badly, the added pressure on your body can mean, if it's not flexible and you're not relaxed enough, you can end up damaging yourself quite severely. We are also beginning to see, as more people are beginning to break the sort of 100-meter barrier or even the 90-meter barrier, and go significantly deeper, their dive times become longer. So actually, bubbles in the blood are becoming a bit more of an issue, and I know a few more people who've actually ended up in decompression tanks having to have treatment because they've got decompression sickness. So it's an area which freediving is actually going to have to start looking at quite significantly the more people start doing it and the deeper people go. So
I just didn't realise you got that from freediving.
It's something. The odd person maybe had it a couple of years ago, and it's suddenly becoming a bit more prevalent. The trouble is, it's not, of the instances that have happened, and I'm just remembering this off the top of my head, it tends to come when people are doing multiple deep dives in a very short period of time. Now, when I'm training towards my personal best, I will do 2 warm-ups, which are both hangs around 14-15 meters. So I'm neutrally buoyant and I can just relax there, and I do my exercises or just hold my breath and then come back up. And then I do 1 deep dive. The moment I'm diving deeper than 65 meters, I will only do 1 deep training dive a session. And I would generally do 2 days deep training and then 1 day dry, where I don't get in the water and I don't do breath holds at all. So I'm giving my body lots of time in between to recover. Decompression sickness seems to happen a lot more for freedivers when people are doing very deep dives and they're doing lots of them day after day, and maybe even doing a couple in a session. So it's, yeah, we as a group of people doing an activity, we need to start becoming more aware of this and being more sensible with our training as a result. But you know, it's still a very new sport. We're learning a lot. There is not one definitive way to do it at all. A method that might work brilliantly for someone else could be a complete waste of time for somebody else. So we're kind of feeling our way. Yes, there are the forerunners out there who, you know, occasionally things happen, but I'm a real believer in getting my body and mind ready for the depth. If they aren't both in sync, you won't go deep, because the whole sport is about relaxation. And it's relaxation of the body and it's relaxation of the mind, because when you're relaxing, watching television, doing absolutely nothing, your brain is already consuming 20% of the oxygen you're breathing in. It's a very hungry organ in terms of oxygen consumption to create the energy to work. Now, if you start getting stressed, think how much your brain kind of wakes up and fires up and starts going 19 to the dozen. That massively increases your oxygen consumption, at which point that takes it away from your body and you start.
It's really interesting you say this, because we spoke to John Chatterton yesterday, and you know, big times diver, done serious depths, you know, like yourself. And he was saying exactly the same thing. You know, it's all about keeping calm. For him to be able to do some of these extreme depths that he's done, and even as a commercial diver, how the CO2 will build up. And you know, us as divers, we're very aware of the effects of nitrogen narcosis and how that affects a scuba diver. But what you're saying as well, and very relates to what John was saying, is actually the more calm you can be in the water, reduces the effects of carbon narcosis. And you know, the subject which doesn't really get that much highlight as much as nitrogen. And it affects you the same as it affects us. You know, and
for me, freediving, it's like the extreme sport of relaxation is what I call freediving. And for me, relaxation is very much like an onion. You've got through one layer, you think you've got to the bottom of it, and there is always more that you can do to relax. So actually, as freedivers, I spend 95% of my time trying to be as calm and chilled out as possible, you know, and then for 3 minutes, I ask my body to work reasonably hard, but I do it in a very calm, very calculated way that I've trained for over the last 7 years to be able to do. The moment you get stressed, your oxygen consumption rises, your heart rate beats faster, and your dive time drops. And this is so relevant to scuba divers as well. And it's one of the main reasons whenever I'm talking to scuba divers, they're like, oh, I don't know whether I'm interested. I'm like, even if you don't want to pursue free diving in any form after you've done a basic freediver course, what you will benefit from is relaxation skills and how to really calm yourself down. And that translates directly into longer bottom time with your buddy who has also done the course. So you're both absolutely chilled out and relaxed, and obviously seeing so much more and getting, I don't know, another 5, 10, maybe 15 more minutes out of your tank as a result.
Yeah.
What level you are. So it's
that is definitely a thing, because you know, I spoke to other people who are in the technical world, and they all, if they only maybe do like one particular dive that they've got coming up that day, they'll make sure they are very well organized and prepped, so there's nothing really, no surprises, nothing's going to really work them up. So the whole lead up to the dive, it'll be a very stressless, relaxed atmosphere, and just, you know, well, there's probably a few of them go, no, Ed, not in reality, but there's a right faff, but in reality, that's what the plan hopefully is that, you know, because what you say is right, you know, the calmer you can be and more relaxed you can be, the more you know, that it all helps your bottom time and things like that. What about fitness? How does fitness come into it for you?
Well, just nipping back as well, not only does it help with the bottom time, but actually should a situation arise which is not ideal and you haven't planned for, if you're calm and relaxed, you're much better able to deal with anything. So from a safety point of view, it's a huge bonus. Fitness, there's a real cycle to the training season, and when we're doing deep dives, all the muscles and the strength that we've spent a lot of time during the dry part of the year building up kind of disappear very, very quickly. The pressure, which we don't entirely understand what it's doing, like many things in life, it does eat away at muscle mass quite significantly. So you have to train very carefully to incorporate work to maintain the muscles and the cardio work that you've put in, and yet there's a really fine balance, because if you overdo the cardio work, your muscles then require far more oxygen and they get oxygen greedy. So it's finding that balance between being cardio fit and having a really lovely low relaxed heart rate, and having muscles that are really strong and powerful but aren't going to use too much oxygen. It's about isolating and using only the muscles you need to use, and everything else is relaxed. Currently, obviously, I'm dry, which is traumatic.
We feel your pain.
Feeling as well. I'm doing running where I'm actually working on my heart rate and keeping it in a specific band, which is excruciatingly tedious. All my exercise, I do nose breathing as well. If we come on to the breath work, breath trainer stuff, I am an absolute advocate for nose breathing. So all this running, not only am I bearing in mind, I'm taking my heart rate into account and I'm keeping myself in that particular band. I'm only breathing through my nose, and that can slow down the running as well. So I do running
in and out through your nose. Yeah.
Yes.
I can do that.
Yeah, when you're doing running and exercises, if you can, that's fantastic and brilliant, and keep it up.
That's one of the few things I do well, is breathing in, out.
And
that's
breathing
when somebody
out.
asks me to do something else as I'm doing in and out, then that's like, you know, too many things all at the same time. I'm doing breathing in and out, and somebody's asking me questions. Gemma finds this all the time, and I have to go, hold on. You know, really two things.
So yeah, I do I do running. I do functional fitness, a lot of movement fitness with fluidity. I do yoga. I do Pilates. I do breath hold training. I do my lung stretching, which is a huge part, and I should actually be doing it every day. But yeah, it's
just that's really good, and we'll maybe come back to that.
Yeah.
Just maybe for for people who don't have not maybe have heard of you before, how did you get into all this? Did you start off as swimming? Who got you involved in it, and what was the thing that really attracted you to say, right, I'm going down this free diving route? What done it for you?
I was a water baby as a child.
Oceans?
No, Taurus actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I wasn't great at walking, and I still don't enjoy it hugely unless there's a good pub at the end. And I'm not a great runner. I do it because it's good for me. But I used to, as a child, I would have preferred to swim everywhere rather than walk or run. I could entertain myself in the swimming pool for hours, swimming through hoops. Just, I loved it.
Sounds like my daughter.
Yeah.
Just
Fantastic. And then I was at school and I was on the team. I did butterfly and front crawl and individual medley. It was good for the school. I wasn't quite county level, but I was still a water baby. And then I actually learned how to do scuba when I was probably about 12. And it was fabulous. The one thing was, I found it really noisy, so I used to hold my breath between the inhale and the exhale, and I always had to keep reminding myself, keep breathing, keep breathing, keep breathing, And I saw the movie The Big Blue in 1998. I was away at boarding school. It was a soggy weekend, and I remember being in the common room on Saturday, Sunday afternoon, and watching this epic long film and just going, oh, I need this in my life somehow, and then promptly forgetting about it for 24 years. Then I was off traveling to Thailand, and I was going with a friend who wanted to redo their scuba qualifications because they hadn't dived for years, and I said, find a school that does scuba and freediving. And my first dive, I came up from apparently a bit like a madwoman. And I had this look on my face, and I just went, this is it. This is what I've always been looking for. I'm home. And my instructors were like, okay, you're all right, Helena. I absolutely loved it. It was the moment I put my head underwater, and it's still true today for every single dive, this peace and quiet descends, and this total focus in the moment, where the kind of the everyday noise of the voices, numerous in my head going off on one, they're just quiet, and it's peaceful, and it's blue, and it's beautiful generally. Not so much in the UK. I do prefer warmer waters, I have to say. And the wildlife comes and looks at you and kind of goes, oh, what are you doing here? You're fun. And you can move around with it fast. You're not left behind because of all the equipment that we need as scuba divers. And
you must feel really free if you've got no tank and BCD on. And
yes, getting into the wetsuits is not so easy, but once you're in the water, it's just amazing. And what I really love about it is I've done things, and it's been throughout the 7 years that I've been freediving, where I've just kind of thought, I can't do that. And then I've done it and just gone, holy moly, if I can do that underwater, what can I actually do on land when I'm breathing? And I because you progress to depth very slowly and very gradually, I've found it the most amazing way to challenge myself in actually a really safe way, because I'm never doing huge big jumps or diving dangerously. So I get to challenge myself and see, is this a hard barrier, or actually can I nudge past this? And oh, look, I've done something else I didn't think I could do. And that's really empowering. And then you're out in nature, and you know, you really hear the reef, you hear the fish and the turtles or whatever chomping away. And you know, at times I think, she's really not that quiet underneath here. There's a hell of a lot of noise going on. But yeah. It's a magical world. And yeah, we can't stay down and enjoy the fish and the scenery as long as you guys can. But
it is a true point, though, because like I can think of some dives I've done, and you actually you do take in the ambience of the dive and where you are, and then you'll hear this awful noise that's come from a boat somewhere. It's like started up the diesel engine, and it's like, oh, you know what, it's really ruined it, you know. And you it's a really good thing to pick up on, is actually the noises of nature when and you can be in a lovely, I can think of somewhere in the Red Sea where it was really quiet, and all of a sudden you'll hear something like a dolphin out in the distance, or so as you say, like a turtle or something, and you just hear the noise, even the noise of the waves and stuff, and that is lovely.
But it's not just that, because there are, you know, there's your vision of what you can see, there's the sound of what you can hear, and there's also what you can feel. And I do a lot of visualizations for my dives, because I can't train deep dives the whole time. I can only do one deep dive every session. So
what does that mean when you say you do visualization?
I visualize the build up to doing, say, a competition dive. So I'll arrive at the dive site, I'll visualize how I get out my gear, what's my pre-dive preparation, getting changed, getting in the water, how the water feels on my face, on my hands, on my feet, even how the wetsuit feels, how tight it is, and all these really minute details, even on the dive, when I'm imagining myself in free fall and I'm making sure my position's all right, and I can feel the water on my face as I go past, because you're falling at around 1 meter per second. So you do actually feel the sensation of the water on your hands, and maybe your hands are moving slightly. And again, it's a really nice thing to do, to feel that. So
you're not equalizing as you're going down, are you?
Oh, yes, I'm equalizing like a mad woman.
You are.
Yeah, when I do my warm, and this is one of the biggest questions. I mean, it's the first question I get asked by all scuba divers, is how do you equalize your ears that quickly? In my first warm-up dive for every session, where I go down to 14 meters, within the first 10 meters, I've equalized at least 19 times.
How do you do that? Is it just
well, I'm wearing I don't wear a mask when I'm diving, and I've got a nose clip on, so I'm just gently pushing air up my eustachian tubes into the ear. And also, one of the things that's really important is the moment I feel pressure in my ear, I've left an equalization too late, and I should actually be thinking about aborting the dive. I do it 19 times, because I'm doing 19 times really, really, really easily. So there's never a problem. By the time I've done 2 warm-up dives like that, and I'm ready for my deep dive, I don't need to equalize as often as that, you know. And plus, I'm also going a lot faster. When I'm doing warm-ups, I'm going down the line really, really slowly. It's about warming up the ears. It's about warming up the diaphragm, getting the body back into the right headset. When it comes to the actual dive, I'm moving down the dive line a lot faster. So I do equalize a lot less, but I cannot emphasize enough how often freedivers equalize, and the fact that we do it, almost overdo it, because the moment you've got that pressure, you're kind of there. And the moment you've got pain, you just, a lot of beginner freedivers can unfortunately make the error of kind of going down, and they're feeling pain in their ears, and they look down, which is a terrible thing you must never do, and they see the bottom plate and they're like, oh, it's just there, I can reach for it, and they end up damaging their ears as well. Much like scuba divers, it's great, I don't feel great, but I don't want to upset the rest of the group, because they, you know, And so, but it's so important to remember we only have 2 ears, and they're really, really fragile.
Yeah.
Once you start damaging the stuff in the ears, you're incredibly lucky if you get it back. So equalization is huge, and it's almost done more than you could possibly need it. That way I can go down to 76 meters and still have air in my mouth to use. I'm not bringing air up from my lungs at this stage at all. This is all done. I've at a certain point, I lock my glottis, having brought up some more air into my mouth. I lock my glottis, and then I use that air really carefully and relaxed and slowly, and that can get me down to 76 meters and still have air in my mouth to equalize, which I then put back down.
Surprising how much air you can store in your lungs, isn't it?
Well, yes, but you have to remember, as you go down the pressure, and you'll know all about this, at the first 10 meters, your lungs have shrunk by half. By 20 meters, they've shrunk to a third of the size they are on the surface. And by 30 meters, they're a quarter of the size. But between 30 and 40 meters, you reach residual volume. It's where your lungs cannot actually shrink anymore.
Yeah.
At which point one of the bits from the mammalian dive reflex kicks in, which we're all born with, because we spend 9 months in our mother's tummies in fluids, and we have this dive reflex that dolphins and seals and whales all have. Ours is just not as strong and a bit forgotten about, so we try and encourage that. And the blood rushes from our extremities, so our arms and our legs, and it floods around the alveoli, the sacs within the lung space, so that almost the lungs are you're right.
Honey, you just threw a ball at me. Sorry.
That's all right. What that means is that the blood protects the lungs so they can't compress any further.
Right.
And that helps keep us safe and in one piece. But it's when you go too deep too quickly, and that transferal of the blood from the extremities doesn't happen quick enough, or you do too many deep dives for you in a session, or you aren't relaxed, or you move badly, then you can cause problems. But we actually have these 4 things that our body does that helps us adapt and cope with water much better than we all actually think we can do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think I might have gone off on a tangent there. What was the original question?
So is this part of your career?
Doesn't matter.
Is this part of your job, doing the free diving, or is it just kind of a hobby?
No, it did start off being an obsessional hobby. And a few years ago, I decided I actually wanted to properly devote my year to it. And I like to do training sessions in kind of 2-month or 6 weeks to 2-month batches, and then have a month dry. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. I'm 45. I started this when I was 38, and I love the fact that I'm 35 and kicking ass. Sorry, I don't know what I'm saying.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Excellent. And I fully intend to be competing in-depth competitions for at least 15 more years, and I want to be competing deeper than I'm currently going. I love the fact that this is something I took up late in life, that it shows people to follow and pursue things that you're passionate about and enjoy them. And why not? And then when I'm not underwater, I spend time talking at people. Hopefully they're interested. And I help people with better breathing habits as well, for health, for physical and mental fitness.
Yeah.
So have you won any competitions or anything?
I actually won my first medal. I seem to compete at all the wrong competitions, because I should have had a lot more winnings by now. But it's also good to remember you're only competing against yourself. I won my first bronze medal in Dominica last November at Blue Element, and I came third overall. And actually it was really, really emotional, because the other part of my story and what I speak about is that 20 years ago, I was suffering from chronic depression and was on the verge of suicide. And I now live a life that back then I just could not fathom, pardon the pun, that I could ever have been doing. And I talk about my journey to positive mental health, and the fact that I am so fortunate in that the training I do for freediving just happens to be pretty much perfect for maintaining positive mental health. You know, I'm doing exercise, I'm out in nature a lot, as much as possible. I meditate, I do breathing exercises, I practice relaxation. You know, there isn't much more that I could do to help with positive mental health. So
it's amazing.
yeah,
It's transferred.
Yeah. And the thing was, I only found this 4 years ago, whereas I was in dire straits 20 years ago, and I was well on the way to recovery when I found freediving. But yet, as well as kind of the therapy and the NHS and the support I received from friends and families, the freediving has just it's built such a strong foundation that I know I will never go back to where I was now, because I know how to look after myself. I know what the warning signs are when I'm going, because we all have up and down days, but I know how to pause that and either sort of bring it along, bring it back up. And yeah, I know I will not go back to where I was before. So
that's good, and it's good that you've learned that.
Hello, this is the start of Mental Health Awareness Week. It's the 18th of May, and this is Helena's story.
it's a photo of me when I was maybe 7. I look free, I look home. I've always loved water, playing on the beach, in the waves, swimming pool, bath. I remember my dream as a child was to represent Great Britain at the Olympics. I was around 11, 12 when I first noticed that things weren't quite right. But it wasn't until I was around 26 that I realised it was depression. It crept on so stealthily that I just didn't really notice until things were going very, very wrong.
When did you first start self-harming?
I was in a bar after work with my colleagues. I'd gone to the bathrooms, sitting in a cubicle, and I saw a broken glass in the corner. And I picked it up and I started cutting, because I wanted to feel something. I wanted to see if I was actually still alive. It made me feel like a freak. It made me feel embarrassed. I wasn't able to talk to people about it, ashamed of what I was doing, because I'd begun to realise that it wasn't acceptable behaviour. I felt totally isolated, and I had to break that to start getting help. My first ever free dive was probably two, maybe 3 meters, but I was struck immediately by the silence. All the everyday noises of sort of the environmental noises around, but also the negative voice of depression, suddenly silenced. And this peace is the only way I can describe it. Being free of that, being in the exact moment, maybe because you're holding your breath underwater at what seems like an incredible depth, brings you totally into focus, and every second is fresh and completely separate from any other second. I could hear my heart beating. I could feel it thumping in my chest in excitement and fear and amazement at how incredible it was underwater. And I came up from this dive and I probably looked like a wild woman. And my instructor sort of said, "Are you okay? Was everything all right?" And I said, "I'm home." And in that moment, my childhood dream of representing Great Britain came back to me. This is my Monofin Dive at the World Championships in Roatan, and I was doing a dive of 71 meters with my monofin, so that's nearly 24 stories down and back up on one breath. I'm free falling, it's getting darker. I'm feeling the water on my hands, I'm feeling it on my face. I have an alarm in my hood that's telling me I'm about to get to the bottom plate. Grab the tag, I've got it. I need to secure it in my hood and then I head back to the surface. But I can't rush. If I rush, I use too much oxygen. My muscles will burn, I will run out of oxygen and then be in trouble. I have to keep a constant pace. I'm beginning to feel the urge to breathe. I keep my kicks constant. I vary between large and small. I know my safety are about to appear and escort me back up to the surface for potentially the most dangerous part of the dive. There are cameramen around. I have to ignore all of that and focus on changing my breath as soon as I break the surface and getting fresh air into my system. I get to the surface. Having completed a successful dive at the World Championships, I was exhilarated to have fulfilled a childhood lifelong dream. I started freediving age 39, just because you might be older. It's never too late. Your negative voice may tell you you're worthless, you're a failure, you shouldn't bother, you're unloved, you're unwanted. Maybe you should cut yourself. Maybe you should end your life. Keep fighting. Because anything is possible. For anyone.
If you've been touched by Helena's story, just let you know that there will be links coming up at the end of this video. But right now, it's back to our audio.
Mental health has got a lot more of a higher profile now than what it ever has had, and especially, while we're during these sort of times. And it's good that you found these skills, although they didn't help you back then. It helps you to maintain a healthy mental health now and going on forward, taking things forward. So that's brilliant. Maybe that's something we can share, and for people who can then look at you as an example and maybe contact you for how you can help them.
Well, if people are interested, there was actually a film made a couple of years ago by a chap called Simeon Quarry at Vivida, who I sat with for many, many hours, and I told him my story. And it's a 6 minutes 20 film, and it's a bit hardcore at the start. The first 90 seconds are like, oh, and then it's got a lot of freediving in. It talks a little bit about the fact that I was a water baby, and then it talks about how I truly believe that life is worth fighting for, and that you should pursue your passions. And
definitely.
yeah. And you know, it's a really nice feel good film. It does tend to make a few people cry, but in a kind of a good way by the end. And you know, if people want to see that, they can see that on my website or on Instagram or Facebook. But yeah, I'm more than happy to talk about my mental health. I do talk about my mental health, and I'm very passionate about talking about helping people to have better breathing habits as well, because of the profound effects that can have on us physically and mentally. I mean, I genuinely can't stress enough that I believe your mental health, to exercise appropriately for your mental health, is just as important as to physically exercise your body.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
And
absolutely.
thankfully, we are finally getting to the stage where people realize that, and mental health is front and foremost. You know, Mental Health Awareness Week starts tomorrow, and this year's theme is kindness, which is a really nice one. And because it's always a really good way to help yourself is by helping others.
Yeah.
But it's also really important to remember to be kind to yourself, and how that can ripple out towards other people. If you start being a little bit kinder to yourself, you tend to be a little bit kinder. So yeah, it's all good stuff, all good clean stuff. So.
Yeah, and it's treating, you know, people how you want to be treated back as well, because that's a
very, very true.
That's a big effect. Yeah.
Very, very true.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting.
I think this will be something if we can share tomorrow. I think that'll be a good thing to share tomorrow to start the week off. You know,
lovely.
If you're happy with that.
I'd be thrilled, absolutely thrilled. One of the reasons we did, well, the main reason we did this thing was to give hope and inspire people to reach out and get help. As uncomfortable as it was during the process, I kept saying to myself, if it helps one person, it's worth it. If it helps one person, it's worth it. And the feedback is that it has helped a lot of people. And if you'd like to share it, I'd be absolutely thrilled. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's good.
Once this is done, we'll share it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So where can people find you? You know, can you give us your social media? Where do people need to go to find all these details out about you?
Probably the best one is actually Instagram. I do have a Facebook webpage under Helena Bourdillon. I do have a website, helenabourdillon.com. But the best one, where the links are really easy to see and you can go through on my profile to see everything, is my Instagram. And my name on Instagram is Helena, so that's HELENA _Bourdillon, B for Bertie, OURDILLON.
That's great. Yeah, we'll get that
page on Instagram. And there's some quite cool photos, because freediving does lend itself to some quite excellent photos. So enjoy.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on to Little Big Chat. And
my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No, it's brilliant. And,
really interesting. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'd love to come back and talk to you about healthy breathing if you're interested sometime.
That'd be brilliant. That sounds like a great thing. We'll do that maybe next month. Yeah, that'd be all right.
Perfect. Absolutely.
Brilliant.
I'd love to. Brilliant. Enjoy the sunshine. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.